All right, so let's talk about what we need you to do for your discussion. We've been talking about news value criteria. First, we started talking about proximity, that is what's close to you, and then we talked about localization. But today, let's get into two things that deal with this week's assignment: prominence. So, famous names make news. Um, yeah, so this includes famous people, places, and things. So, if Christian really got the flu, would people want to read that story? Yeah, maybe. I'm sorry, Christian. But if you looked and you found those same stories about Beyonce, or you found those same stories about some other superstar, they would probably, people might sort of read it. They might start to stop to sort of spend some time with that story. Not everybody, but some people. And so that's the whole idea behind prominence. You look here at the Harvey Weinstein story, and there's people, other people have been charged with sexual misconduct, but when it's Harvey, it's when it's a movie mogul like him, then it became much bigger. Um, People really couldn't worry about reading shingles and somebody that's been quarantined because of shingles. However, amazing enough, CNN covers Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm still not sure it's a story. However, I guarantee you people will stop and read that story. Or you get cases like this, like Breonna Taylor. Those names and George Floyd, they are more prominent now. So you may have stories that rise around those stories that are connected to those stories over the coming weeks. And just like here, you've got the grand jury release of this transcript. Those names have been brought to prominence by people protesting, and by putting their names up for these famous people too, have sort of catapulted these names in these cases to the limelight as well. And so that's sort of part of their role into trying to bring light on these topics. Who really is going to read about what Brittany Matthews cares to write about? However, because she's Patrick Mahomes' fiance, there you go. You've got a story. So suddenly, or something that somebody's going to read about. So you just have to look at that. And then sometimes they're just famous events like the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl's anything tied to that, commercials, um, any story tied to that, it's just become sort of this major event and major happening that people would cover it. Even like this one. I don't know if you remember this kid. I knew as soon as Justin Timberlake that year, he stopped and to sort of take that selfie with that kid, the kid had sort of hit the big time at that point. That kid would have gone viral. And sort of sure enough, that sort of happened. And then, of course, like I said, anything Beyonce becomes a story. The second one of these is timeliness. How recent is that story's event or the anniversary? So if you stopped right now and looked at, if you looked at your phone, if you look to sort of see what's the thing. I mean, Twitter is right on top of that. Usually you'll get some notification or whatever the most timely story is. And so you just got to watch that. But timeliness doesn't always mean sort of like that minute. Like this one's timely only because it's counting down to a deadline for the Census Bureau. And that's coming up, which could cost cities and counties all sorts of millions of dollars if they're underreported numbers. But this is really the story of the day when I checked. And by the time you read this, it's probably not. And there's a good chance it won't be the story. But this is on the day that kind of the debate's the big story of the night. So that's the timely aspect of it. Tomorrow, the angle will be different because it's not as timely. We go through that all the time on the Harbinger and Harbinger Online. If it's a game story, we're going to cover that on the online because it's timely then. If we wait to cover it in the print, everybody's on to the next game. They don't really care about it. I mean, truly, that'll happen. There's all this buildup sometimes for homecoming, and everybody wants to read about it. And then up to the point in time that it happens, and the next day, people are kind of done. They've already moved on. So you just have to think about the angle that you take with stories when it comes to timeliness. And some stories happen to have a timely angle only because of the anniversary. So 9/11 is big enough that every year rolls around that you'll see, and next year especially, you'll be on the 20th anniversary, so you'll see lots of big stories surrounding 9/11. So that's the deal. You're looking at whatever's the most recent thing. So as you look to do this discussion, come up with a story, you're looking for a story that has both prominence and timeliness. Should be pretty easy to come up with. So that's what you're looking to put in there and discuss.